You're listening to We Act Radio, WPWC 1480 AM. Visit us online at weactradio.com.
That's right. Good morning. Welcome to State of Play. I'm your host, Maria Roach, and we are talking about money, almighty dollar. And we're talking about how to get the money out of Congress today with two of the badasses in progressive organizing. Coming up later in the show, you'll hear from Rashad Robinson. He's Executive Director of Color of Change, and also Angelo Carusone, and he is with Media Matters. But first, I got a little bit of a bone to pick. I am tired of people co-opting the term patriot. So let's have a little bit of a history lesson today on this May Day. Let's go back in time, and this may sound a little familiar to you. For some people, they forget that the American Revolution started off as activism. You might even say it was progressive activism. Remember, no taxation without representation? This was a protest on high taxes. This story may be a little familiar. A corporation, with the help of well-placed friends, some friends in high places in the government, designed laws that benefited who? The poor? No, the wealthy. And that was back in 1773. That was the Tea Act. And the colonists were saying, we're not going to pay these high taxes when we don't have any representation. And we know now that that sparked the American Revolution. So let's fast forward now, 2013, and we have some people with friends in high places benefiting themselves. And the middle class and the poor are struggling. So we're going to talk to two guys who know how to go after the money and know how to bring in a lot of mad as hell people to get things done. And we're really looking forward to talking to them today. So make sure you go to stateofplaynews.com or send me a tweet at stateofplaynews. Let me know what makes you mad, what's ticking you off today, and send some questions so we can have on later shows our guests can help you figure it out and figure out how to make some change that matters to you and your community. So we are about to speak to Rashad Robinson. Rashad, executive producer of Color of Change in New York City. Rashad, welcome, and thanks for joining me today.
Thanks for having me.
So, Rashad, Color of Change has an exciting new campaign, and it seems like you have unraveled yet another layer of the onion here. You and I go back to this time last year, and we were working on the Trayvon Martin case. I created a petition asking for the FBI to get involved, and you were down in Sanford working with the families, trying to get to the bottom of this tragic murder. Can you talk to my listeners about what that process was like? How did you take this tragic incident and help people to tap into their anger and use it in a way that would create change?
At Color of Change, we believe in turning moments into movements. And so for us, we really wanted to not only elevate this issue around Trayvon and what was happening and provide an opportunity for everyday people to make their voices heard. We also wanted to, do some work, right, to fight for the Trayvons that we don't yet know. And so, we through our model of creating sort of online tools and opportunities, and then also taking that and moving people up a ladder of engagement to deeper and deeper actions, from petitions to phone calls to turning out to rallies. all sort of in partnership with a wide range of organizations and activists like yourself, really worked to provide opportunities for everyday people to make their voices heard.
It seems like there was an evolution that you started off with a young man, a teenager, gunned down in Sanford, Florida, but then you took it a little bit further and you looked at the laws that allowed George Zimmerman to not be arrested for such a long amount of time. And then you looked a little bit deeper into who are people like George Zimmerman and what creates these types of people who feel that they could shoot first and ask questions later. Talk about that. What were you discovering as you were unraveling this murder case?
I think it's something that we've known for a long time here at Color of Change. We've known the important role that culture and media images play in our day-to-day thinking and in sort of the ways that we have bias around a wide range of issues and the implicit or unconscious bias that each and every one of us sort of has, no matter who we are. And media plays a tremendous role in that. And I've been for the last 10 years of my career in a wide range of kind of organizing spaces have really worked to hold media accountable, whether it was the work I was doing, at the Gay and Lesbian Alliance Against Defamation, also known as GLAAD. I worked there for 6 years, really working to transform the way that media covered and portrayed LGBT folks and ushering a lot of the change that you saw in Hollywood that really sort of, changed hearts and minds on Main Street, which, led to people being more accepting and open. And when you think about sort of the way that young Black boys and Black men and Black community in particular are currently portrayed, whether it's, in scripted dramas or the reality television programming, we have a long way to go. When George Zimmerman saw Trayvon, he didn't see Justin Bieber, right? He saw a really scary kid a really scary guy, as he said, that was up to no good. He didn't see a 17-year-old kid with a hoodie on, and that is because of so much of the portrayals that are out there. And so, part of what we're doing over the next couple of years at Color of Change is continuing to run the campaigns that we run and the successful campaigns around corporate accountability and voting rights and criminal justice and economic justice. But we're also stepping back a bit and saying, how do we transform the landscape, the culture? How do we hold media accountable to start doing a better job so that we're not just, pushing back on law, pushing back on moments, but we're really kind of looking at this issue from a macro level and figuring out how do we change hearts and minds? How do we change public opinion?
That's an important issue that you bring up when you talk about images. For many years, I was in New York City working in network news, and I remember having constant battles with my executive producers and senior staff saying, I'm tired of seeing images of Black men as pickpockets when there was statistical data that showed that the incidents of pickpockets were usually perpetrated by someone who was not African American. And I got a lot of eye rolling and a lot of frustration, but there were a lot of stories that as a producer, I prevented from airing, or I weighed in on the angle or the direction of it, saying that this is not accurate and you're playing into fear. Talk about, you have a new campaign now, and it's one that does exactly that, plays into stereotypes and fears. What was the genesis for starting this campaign, and what do you hope to accomplish, Rashad?
Well, we've launched this culture project, at represent.colorofchange.org, and we've, with a real decision that we were going to take on images coming out of Hollywood. And as we started to do our planning, and we started looking at reality television as this place that was, creating so many problems. I use reality in quotations. It's such a huge problem. We looked back and, one of the first reality television programs is still on the air, and it's called Cops. And listeners probably know the iconic sort of opening song, Bad Boys, What You Gonna Do? Right. 25 years Cops has been on the air. It is it actually was greenlit by Rupert Murdoch during the writer's strike about 25 years ago as a sort of low budget replacement because they didn't have any scripted programs. They bought that opening song for a couple of $1,000s, and who would have known that 25 years later this show would still be on the air, portraying sort of this hero law enforcement figure going into Black, brown, and poor communities and sort of giving viewers sort of this dehumanizing look at the failed war on drugs and sort of failed policing practices. We never actually get to know who the backstory behind the people who are being arrested or sort of being dealt with by the criminal justice system. We never see stories in which police officers act in ways that they shouldn't, which we know happens. From our perspective, as we continue to advocate on a wide range of issues, we know at Color of Change that if cops really wanted to have a television show where they dealt with crime that really impacted all of us and really impacted the way that we live, they wouldn't be going after sort of low-level drug offenders and dealing with these sort of dehumanizing depictions of the war on drugs. They'd be going and having a cops episode on Wall Street or Capitol Hill, places where the crimes that are happening there, where millions of people's homes can be foreclosed on and sort of the housing crisis could be created. And other issues that we've seen where those type of crimes actually have real impact on the way that we live.
I have a question for you, and it's coming from Michael in Jackson, Mississippi, and he's saying that the images that are seen on TV, some of them are really what happens, but there's no balance, that for every negative image and stereotype, there's not enough positive role models being highlighted. What would you say to Michael and his question regarding that?
I think Michael's right on. I mean, we're not actually trying to stamp out all what you would say negative portrayals, right? There's the problem with stereotypes is not that they're there. There's probably a lot of truth to a lot of stereotypes. The problem is that that's all we're getting, and the problem is that there's an overwhelming amount, and then and we could maybe point to one or two good examples of stuff on TV, but the fact that those are just one or two really points to the kind of negative landscape that we're living inside of. And so for me, and for my organization, and for the members that we represent and we serve and who lead us through their voices, our work here is really to create a better balance in the media landscape, and then to really be focused on holding corporate media accountable, ensuring that they understand that both the media and the advertisers, which make the media possible, can't come for our money by day and dehumanize us by night.
Let me also ask you, Rashad, and we're listening to State of Play with Rashad Robinson, who is with Color of Change out of New York City. Thank you again, Rashad, for joining us today. I want to talk about the work that you did as far as the laws that created these stand your ground and shoot first laws. So to go back to, we've talked about the images that create the mentality that someone like George Zimmerman would have to say that Trayvon didn't belong in this neighborhood and must be a wrongdoer. But also there is the component regarding the laws. Can you talk about what you found and what Color of Change did to remedy this situation?
For a number, well before sort of we learned about the tragedy in Sanford and the tragedy of Trayvon Martin, we had been organizing a campaign against the American Legislative Exchange Council, also known as ALEC. ALEC is a 40-year-old organization founded by Paul Weyrich, who some of your listeners might know is also the founder of the Heritage Foundation and sort of a real leader in terms of conservative thought in this country. And he founded that, and it's part of an underground network of right-wing organizations that really have pushed and promulgated a wide range of laws and policies and and cultural messages that impact the way that we live every single day. And ALEC, through their strategy, which is really sort of like, we describe it as sort of a bill mill. Basically, what they do is they bring corporations and state legislators into rooms, conservative state legislators into rooms where they craft and develop legislation behind closed doors. They then take that legislation into states and introduce it, pass these laws that then have a wide range impact on our lives. They never really expose that these are ALEC laws, but some places the legislators have been so sloppy where they've actually introduced ALEC legislation in like a state like Florida and forgot to take the header off of it.
Wow.
ALEC has been behind that nasty Arizona immigration law. ALEC was behind the voter ID laws. They were behind stand your ground laws. They were behind a wide range of issues that impact the way that Black people live in our communities. And they did this with the support of corporations. 98% of ALEC's money, their resources that allows them to do everything they do, comes from corporations. So Coke and Pepsi and McDonald's and all these corporations that every single day come to Black folks and say, buy our products, use our services, and then they're dumping money into this organization that behind the scenes is passing these laws that hurt our communities. And we developed a campaign. Color of Change does not take any money from these corporations. So we really were able to be unbought and unbossed. And we started leading this campaign specifically around the discriminatory, narrow voter ID law. But as the Trayvon Martin tragedy unfolded and we were organizing around that, it came to light that Stand Your Ground, the reason why George Zimmerman was out, was crafted. That law was crafted by ALEC. It was crafted by ALEC with the support of Walmart, which was one of ALEC's corporate sponsors. And Walmart is the largest seller of rifles in this country. So they had obviously a business interest in trying to sell more guns. NRA, which was a member of ALEC as well, was part of that. And so they all got together, crafted this law, and ALEC, took it to the states around the country. We led a campaign basically with a really clear message that these corporations couldn't have it both ways. They couldn't have a relationship with the Black community and sponsor Black History Month celebrations while at the same time giving their money to ALEC. They would say things like, we give money to both sides. We give money to the right and the left. And we told the corporations that there's really not two sides to our ability to vote and our ability to be safe in our communities. And since the launch of the campaign, nearly 50 corporations have left the American Legislative Exchange Council. They've dropped their work around, they've reportedly dropped their work around guns and voting, and that's, at least that's what they've said publicly. And as a result, we've built a stronger movement, stronger political accountability, and sent a really clear message to those who do back deals in Washington, our state capitals, and sent it to major corporations that we're not going to play this sort of game with corporations. If corporations want a relationship with our community, then they need to be upfront and they need to stand up for the issues that we care about.
I think that's an important point that you're making, Rashad, is talking about going after the money. The show started today talking about money and the power of money. I think too many organizations have co-opted the term patriot when going after money really was one of the ways that our founding fathers created the United States of America, where they said no to taxes, no to a lack of representation, no to feeling disenfranchised and disempowered. And you have, as an organization, created a strategy that you're shifting the balance of power by telling corporations, we know what you're doing, we know how you're spending your money, and that you can't have it both ways, as you said. What would you say to the lower income people or the middle class people who don't have the powerful, wealthy lobbyists, supporters, members of their community who can woo the congressional leaders. What would you say to empower them, how to shift the balance of power in the way that you have been at Color of Change, especially going after organizations that support ALEC? What would be the lesson for them?
I think the lesson is to join Color of Change. They can go to colorofchange.org. I think that what makes Color of Change powerful is that we are a community of nearly 900,000 people, and we are able to, leverage our power and our voice to hold these corporations accountable and to shift that balance of power. Our mission, right, is to amplify and to represent Black America's political voice and to help that voice raise. And when we can make the voices of our community heard just as loudly as corporations on Wall Street or those on Madison Avenue or political leaders in state houses or Capitol Hill in Washington, when our voices are heard just as loudly, we begin to make democracy work for everyone.
Now, June 10th, I believe, is the date that George Zimmerman's trial begins. What does Color of Change have coming up regarding that?
We're going to be doing a number of things. We're going to be keeping our members informed about the case. We're going to be doing work to hold media accountable, in particular the sort of crazy speculations that come out of the media. And have been coming out of the media around this case and ensuring that there's accountability for that. The case has to play itself out. And in so many ways, the question is not just what happens in the courtroom, but what do we do regardless of what the decision is in the court? How do we take the energy of people who have been, who have been called to action because of this issue? How do we turn that into the next steps of the activism, the work that we have to do to repeal stand your ground laws, which Color of Change is at the forefront of, the work we have to do to fight racial profiling, the work that we have to do to fight laws like stop and frisk, the work that we have to do to get a show like Cops off the air. These are all things that we can do to say, after Trayvon, things will be different. And we will do all that we can to continue to raise our voices to not only have these cultural victories, but systemic and long-term political victories.
If you could point to one thing that you would say really undermines the social change and really makes it harder for you, would you say it's money? Would you point to the amount of money that flows in and out of Washington and so would say causes legislation to be passed? And is that the real issue, the money?
Money in politics is a really big problem. The fact that our voices continue to be drowned out, the fact that the way that we live can be controlled by such a few group of people, and that sort of permeates so many of the ways that we live, right? We're right now, we've been organizing and supporting the amazingly talented and courageous Walmart workers who have been striking all around the country. And our Color of Change members have been standing up and standing with the Walmart workers as they've raised their voices to really call for better. The Waltons as a family, the Waltons who own Walmart and founded it, they have more money than the bottom 42% of Americans as a family. They have more money than the bottom 42% of this country. Yet they refuse to pay living wages and to provide pathways to real living wage, minimum wage jobs for their employees. The widening income gap, the widening wealth gap in this country, and the fact that the rich continue to get richer because their voices count, as free, the money that they have counts as free speech, and they can use as much as they want to drown out the voices of the many. That said, our ALEC campaign and other work that we've done, I think, proves that when everyday people band together with good organizing strategies, we can win. And so we have to continue to fight that much harder to undo sort of this this downward spiral we've seen over the last several decades in terms of the influence that money has had on our political life.
Excellent. Well, thank you so much, Rashad. Thank you for your hard work. Thank you so much for leading Color of Change, and keep fighting. And we look forward to having you on the show many more times to talk about some of the new work that you're doing and how the listeners can support you. Again, that's Rashad Robinson, Executive Director of Color of Change. And you're listening to We Act Radio here in Washington, D.C., State of Play, and I'm your host, Maria Roach.
You're listening to We Act Radio, WPWC 1480 AM. Now get out there and do something.
This entire piece of music was played with only two instruments, a right hand and a left hand. Hands can do incredible things, but nothing compares to using them to help save a life with hands-only CPR. If an adult suddenly collapses, call 911, then push hard and fast in the center of their chest until help arrives. Hands-only CPR is recommended by the American Heart Association, and it's incredibly easy and effective. For more information on hands-only CPR and to make your own hand symphony track, visit handsonlycpr.org today. The power to help save a life is in your hands. A message from the American Heart Association and the Ad Council.
I'm a third grade teacher.
I'm a school bus driver.
I am a parent.
I am a teacher's aide, and I agree to be identified
as a caring adult who pledges to help bullied students.
I will listen carefully to all students who seek my help
and act on their behalf
to put an immediate stop to bullying.
I will work with other caring adults to create a safe
learning environment for all the students in my school.
In my school.
In my school.
In my school.
I'm Dennis Van Rokel, President of the National Education Association. Help us create safe, bully-free learning environments for all students. One caring adult can make all the difference. Be that adult and take the pledge at nea.org/bullyfree. Adults have the power to stop bullying in our schools.
It starts with me.
It starts with me.
It starts with me.
It starts with me.
Bully-free. It starts with me.
Visit nea.org/bullyfree. A message from the National Education Association.
Hey, this is Leprechaun Tim Pohanka from Pohanka Nissan and Pohanka Hyundai. It's hard to be down on your luck when you're Virginia's first choice for new Nissan and Hyundais, but I need to sell 60 cars this week. Right now, I'll pay you big bucks for your good luck. Bring down any good luck charm you've gotten. Based on the sale price of the car you choose, I'll give you up to $4,777 off any nicer, newer car this week. Today, your lucky penny is worth plenty, up to $4,777 off any nicer, newer car you want. Stop moping and hoping you'll get approved. With my For the People credit approval process, the banks are looking to get lucky and lend to you, even if you've been turned down before. Bring me any good luck charm and I'll give you up to $4,777 off any nicer, newer car today. Hurry, once I get rid of 60 cars, the luck runs out. All offers require bank approval, so call us at 1-800-POHANKA, visit Pohanka Nissan and Pohanka Hyundai on Route 1 in Fredericksburg, or better yet, log on to timpohankaforthepeople.com. And when we make a deal, I promise it'll be your lucky day. I'm Tim Pohanka, and I'm a leprechaun for the people.
You're listening to We Act Radio, WPWC 1480 AM. Visit us online at weactradio.com.
My name is Joe Thompson. I'm 29 years old and I have a career that I love as a systems analyst. Career. It still sounds cool to say that word. I never could have gotten on this path without a college degree. And if the college me were here, he'd tell you.
I never would have gotten
Angelo,
to college without big brothers, big sisters. I could have ended up anywhere, on the streets even. But college, Joe Thompson, not likely. My big brother helped me out. He taught me I could do anything, at a time when a lot of people were saying just the opposite.
And to a 7-year-old, that means a lot. My big brother's name is Phil, and Phil is the reason that this 7-year-old grows up to be a systems analyst.
Whether you donate money or time, you're helping Big Brothers Big Sisters help a child, and that can last a lifetime. Start something today at bigbrothersbigsisters.org. Brought to you by Big Brothers Big Sisters and the Ad Council.
If you're a veteran of Iraq or Afghanistan, like me, coming home can be harder than expected. I felt a little out of place, but it turns out I wasn't alone. At IAVA.org, there's a free online community of thousands of OIF and OEF vets who've got your back here, just like they did over there. So now, I'm never alone. I can get the resources I need and talk to tons.
Let me tell you who to blame. Blame the boy lying at your feet, his body oozing life through the hole in his stomach where the bullet tore him apart. Blame him for challenging you, for not looking away and for not backing down when you pulled out the gun. Blame your mother for bringing you into this world when she was but a kid herself and for dragging you up, not bringing you up. Blame society for not giving you hope. Blame your father for not being there, the man who looked after himself instead of looking after you. Blame the gun in your hand for making you a target, for making you more likely to be picked on. Blame the dead boy, blame your mother, blame society, blame your father, blame the gun, blame anyone but yourself for not being strong enough to put down the gun, to break the cycle.
You're listening to We Act Radio, WPWC 1480 AM. Visit us online at weactradio.com.
Hi, welcome back to State of Play, and I'm your host, Maria Roach. You're here listening to We Act Radio in Washington, D.C. It's a beautiful May 1st. Happy May Day. Coming up now, we have Vice President at Media Matters, Angelo Carusone. Angelo has been fighting many people, stupid people, some would say. Donald Trump's been in his sights, and Glenn Beck, the former host at Fox News. And Angelo, welcome. Thank you for joining us today.
Oh, thank you for having me, and congratulations on your show.
Thank you so much. So you're known as kind of the bad boy of progressive organizing. What would you say to that assertion?
That's I don't think I'm very bad. I'm a pretty reasonable guy, I think. But no, I think it's fair. I for me, I can understand why people would say that, because I have a tendency to go after what I think would be some of the biggest bullies on the right wing, and that's Limbaugh and Beck and Donald Trump and obviously Fox News. But there's good reason for that. They not only poison our discourse with deliberate sort of self-serving deceit, but it's the manner in which they do that. The platform that they have, which is oversized to begin with, that allows them in the way they do it, which is so indecent and sometimes aggressive and filled with vitriol, that they actually end up not only poisoning our discourse with lies, but also silencing people, because that kind of bullying and chicanery eventually makes people afraid to speak up, or afraid to participate, or it's just so loud that you can't break through the noise. And so, if that's what people want to say or describe, as standing up to that, I'll accept it, but I'll accept it pretty proudly, I think.
I want to take my audience back to July of 2009. I can't believe it was that long ago, but there was someone who was on your radar for exactly what you were saying, for the bullying. Tell me about that. When did you decide that Glenn Beck needed to be off the air?
So for me, I was in law school, and I had just finished I was in the middle of my second year, and that's about the time in law school when you start to think about or plan for what you're going to do after graduation. And I was in Madison, Wisconsin, and I started to really think about the lay of the land and what politics were like, and to me it seemed that our public policy was so dysfunctional. I mean, everything just seemed so broken and wrong. And obviously you can look directly at the politicians, and that's a fair interpretation. You could look at the system behind it, but for me, the way that I saw it is that the big engine, or one of the big ways in which we shape public policy, is the conversations that we have around it. And there are plenty of problems with that apparatus, but for me, it just seemed like Glenn Beck was the best example, the clearest example of so many things that are wrong with the modern sort of way in which we, conduct media. It was an example of a very, very strong, overwhelming company like Fox News that allowed for and incentivized the most outrageous and irresponsible behavior, not only because it served their political agenda, but because it was something that they could commercialize and monetize. They'd actually not only get political rewards for it, but they would receive monetary rewards for the kind of conduct that Glenn Beck was engaging in, which was not only problematic from a policy perspective, but destructive. And so the way I looked at it is that, this is the space and direction I want to head in. And he seemed like the best example of the very worst of what we had in our modern media. And that's why I sort of set my sights on Glenn Beck. And I started over the summer, and it just kind of snowballed from there.
It seems to be a recurring theme. Earlier we had Rashad Robinson at Color of Change on, and his eyes are focused on Cops, a show that uniquely, what a surprise, has a similar relationship started by Rupert Murdoch, and it's been on for 25 years and shows the worst of the African American community and makes a profit on that. And now we're talking about Glenn Beck, also with Fox News, owned by Rupert Murdoch. And it seems that this is a strategy to make money off of people who don't have a voice and don't have the money to fight against the negative stereotypes and the people who are taking advantage of them. It's a bit of a David and Goliath story, and you sound like you're David stepping into this ring. What?
Yeah, no, it's true. I think that, for me, it was very clear that Beck's conduct was, I never called him a racist. One, I don't think I'm in the position to do that. And two, there's all kinds of, people have all kinds of, the larger community has all kinds of problems with that, especially when you sort of say that description. But what I did say, and what I thought was undeniable, was that even if whether or not he's a racist is somewhat irrelevant, because the things that he did on his show every day preyed on racial anxieties. And that's what he was doing deliberately and well. He was exploiting those racial anxieties in order to, drive up his audience. He was tapping into that sort of, the suggestion that Barack Obama was not, that Barack Obama was born to have an anti-colonial and anti-white perspective, because it was a consequence of his Kenyan genetics, is a pretty strong example of preying on racial anxieties. And if you say that comment once, it's you can make all kinds of arguments that you misspoke or it was a slip of the tongue. But when you spend an entire month trying to deconstruct that claim and then prove it with all these various things, which is what Beck did, that was a show. And for him, he would say it was entertainment, but what he was really doing was, preying on those racial anxieties, tapping into that audience, trying to build up his base, because it meant that he could charge extra ad dollars. And that is ultimately what my concern is, that, we have so many issues in our media landscape these days. We have such consolidation. We have such crowding out of diverse voices and opinions and perspectives. We have such issues when it comes to who actually owns the media. I mean, the less than 2% of the media is owned by non-whites. I mean, that's a very significant problem when you think about issues like what you were talking about before with Cops. That the idea that there's so few perspectives there is a problem in itself, and then to add on top of that problem a perverse incentive, a financial reward to actually stoke those anxieties and exploit them in order to drive up your ad rates is a real problem. And by going after the advertiser in the way that we did, it wasn't the case that we were attacking them and really going after the advertisers, but we were getting them to understand, one, what it was that they were participating in and supporting, and two, why it was bad for their own business. Being in business with these kinds of reckless individuals is actually bad for them too. And a lot of them ended up appreciating the fact that they weren't unintentionally, financially supporting someone like Beck, who would actually hurt their customers or their potential demographic. And so it's not the case that it was an entirely adversarial relationship, because I think the advertisers, many of them really appreciated it too.
So exit stage right, Glenn Beck. Enter stage right, Rush Limbaugh. There are so many things you can say about Rush Limbaugh. Where do you begin, Angelo?
I think that the Limbaugh stuff is an example of, when I was doing the Beck stuff, what I would consistently say to people, because one, they were all even people who would agree with me would say, this is pointless. Either they're not dropping all of Fox News, so you're not doing anything, or, oh, come on, you're never going to get them to drop Glenn Beck. And, there was such a sense, and for me, this whole organizing thing was new too, that there was such a sense of impotency, that for me, I always thought that the biggest barrier of getting people to participate in that effort or others was that they didn't think it would work, that they didn't think that anything they did would actually matter. And what I tried to get everyone to understand was that it did matter, that their participation mattered, and that the persistent element is what pays off, that you have to actually be persistent. It's not going to happen in a week or 2 weeks, but you actually have to consistently move the ball forward and change the calculus, the business calculus that was rewarding and providing for this kind of incentive. And for me, the Limbaugh work, in many ways, it really validated that, because a lot more people were eager to jump on board and participate in the Limbaugh efforts, either their own or through various groups. And I think that people were a little more incentivized to step in because they actually thought it could work, because they said, well, it just worked with Beck. Why can't it work here? And in many ways, that was a big one. That to me, that's the big ingredient, because the difference between the Limbaugh effort and the Beck one is that the Beck one, there were a few major groups on the beat. And that was it, and that's, whereas the Limbaugh one, there's lots of little individuals out there that are listening to their local radio station, contacting their local advertisers, and causing in excess of $100 million in financial losses to Rush Limbaugh and, some of the allied conservative talkers. And I think in many ways it is a recognition that the approach works and that persistence pays off. And it's the same thing. Advertiser after advertiser recognizes that being in and supporting, even by accident, that kind of conduct and that kind of show is actually bad for their own business. It's just too risky. It's too volatile.
And I think you touched upon something when Rush Limbaugh attacked Sandra Fluke, a Georgetown lawyer, studying law, not even a graduate, studying law, just living her life, minding her own business, concerned about health care, as all people are, young or old. I think that really ruffled a lot of feathers, and you were able to provide so many people with an outlet for that anger. Is that, you think, really the formula to great organizing is just the outrage that you feel as a human being, and providing some place for people to use that anger and outrage productively?
That's right. There's nothing worse than impotent rage, because not only is being upset and angry not a good thing in itself, but the feeling of powerlessness that comes or is often associated with that there's nothing you can do about it, not only makes it worse, but it sort of, it's disorienting, and it's discouraging. I think that citizenship is a responsibility. We have all people participate in society in various ways, and we should be encouraged and incentivized to do that. And when you have an example like Rush Limbaugh, where he has such an overwhelming footprint, not because he's so talented and so great, but because there's a major media monopoly behind him that is basically able to give his radio show away for free to smaller radio stations and saying, take our show for free, fire your local talker. It just gives him an enormous footprint, and it seems like there's nothing you can do about that. And the real concern there is that people realize the consequences there. They realize, one, that it's brazen, that he thinks he can get away with it, that he thinks he can act like that without any consequences. And I think impunity is something that no one really likes and can respond to in a very aggressive way. And the other thing is that I think people recognize that kind of bullying and overwhelming response is actually bad, because it crowds out and actually silences voices. It discourages people from participating out of fear that they may be lambasted. I mean, if the idea that tomorrow, someone who just was speaking up about, something that was not terribly controversial, but just sort of explaining how it affected them and the people around them, would have become a national person in which they'd be, lampooned as a slut repeatedly on such a huge footprint, they may think twice. about stepping up and speaking. And I think that kind of intimidation and silencing is what people were also responding to. And I think it was important to push back on that, as well as the rewards that Limbaugh would gain from that. I mean, that guy has a $400 million contract. He's encouraged to act like that. And I think that was the final straw for a lot of folks.
And let's talk about the fact that it's been bad for business for Rush Limbaugh, as high paid as he has been. There have been advertisers jumping ship. Can you give us a little information about that?
Sure. So the advertisers that leave Rush Limbaugh's program, for me, the bigger stuff is, big advertisers leave. His major endorsers do. The ones that run or buy general ads, they say don't run our ads during Rush Limbaugh's show. But I think, and he was just complaining about it this week, the bigger success has been that it has gone beyond just the dozens or a couple hundred advertisers that were taking action, and it's moved one step above to the media buyers, the actual companies that have dozens or hundreds of companies that they actually buy and place the ads for. Those media buyers are actually the ones saying, do not run any of our clients' ads during Rush Limbaugh's program. And we don't, because it's not good for our client. It's not, we're doing these media buys. We'll put them on all these other radio shows, but not Rush Limbaugh's show. Because there's potential risk that he's going to say or go off on another rant, and quite frankly, our clients don't want to be put in that position. Or the second thing is they just feel that some clients have stepped up, and some of the companies have said, these CEOs have said, I have daughters. I have family. This is indecent. This is not about politics. I just would never, ever. It doesn't matter how many times you apologize, which he hasn't. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter what you say in the future. It doesn't matter how potentially good this could be for my business in terms of the phone calls that you could generate to my company. I will not sponsor or financially support someone who acted the way that you do, ever. Done. And I think that's an important step too, because here it's not just, say, someone like myself that has a particular perspective, and I'm coming at this from a perspective of values and saying this is inconsistent with what I think are good values and something that we should be advancing and considering in our society. But it's actually, they're coming at it from a business perspective.
Right.
These are CEOs and major executives who buy tens or 20 or $50 million worth of ads every year on radio, saying, yeah, we'll buy our ads on radio, but we're not going to buy them on Rush Limbaugh's show because that guy's bad for business.
Let's talk about one other.
Different. I mean, that's, yeah.
Yeah, and I'm sorry to interrupt. I think that's such an important point that you're making. And now you have yet another person in your sights, and this is someone now, we've got a multi-billionaire who makes a lot of money off of real estate and TV shows, who you could say gets paid to be a bully, and he has received the ire of Angelo, someone I think probably people shouldn't mess with. I think they should know that if you bully people, you may have Angelo on your tail. Enter Donald Trump. Let's talk about that. Donald Trump, who headed up the birther issue against President Obama. Donald Trump, who threatened to sue you. Tell us more about Donald Trump.
Donald Trump has mastered the art of media manipulation. He really has. He has taken advantage of a system of media in which anything that you could potentially commercialize is rewarded. So, for example, his lucrative deal with Macy's, which is that the basic relationship is Macy's invests in and builds his brand, and in return they get a ton of free advertising. Donald Trump says, and he does this deliberately. He said it's a very clear formula. He says something inappropriate or what would be considered controversial or offensive, or regardless, because he knows that it's bait for bloggers and media figures and entertainment reporters and late night talk. He knows he'll get a seat down on one of the late night host couch, or he'll get a spot on cable news, or he'll get a mention. And then when he does that, he'll couple that with whatever he's promoting at the time, his show, an event, his new product, whatever it be. And so he does these things in order to get some free media, which he can then commercialize. And so NBC knows this, Macy's knows this, and they piggyback onto it because they know it's a ton of free promotion and publicity.
And so that's the old adage that there's no such thing, all PR is good PR. There's no such thing as bad PR.
That's right. And that's exactly the same. It's a very similar issue to what we have with the Beck and the Limbaughs, that there used to be this perverse incentive. Now, that's been, in some ways, at least addressed and identified. There used to not be a line in the sand when it came to some of these talkers, and now there at least is a line in the sand. And it's similar with Donald Trump, that, here we have someone in which, it used to be the case that all press was good press. And now that's not the case anymore, because now Now, if you try to engage in what would be considered totally inappropriate conduct. If I went into Macy's and said stuff that Donald Trump said, they'd throw me out. If I spoke like Donald Trump on a subway in New York City, they'd push me out. Same like with Rush Limbaugh, same with Glenn Beck. That's the general policy, and I think calculus that I bring to these things is how would you react if we were all on a subway car and someone was saying these kinds of things? You'd expect someone to say, "Hey, calm down there, pal," and that's good society, and that's what makes it work. And I think it's the same thing here, where here you have a guy who was previously incentivized and rewarded and encouraged to engage in that kind of conduct because he got something out of it. And now we're going right at the incentive, and we're saying, it's not a case of expressing your opinions or anything like that. It's that you're deliberately trying to manipulate the media, which has consequences for people. Forget about the fact that there's actually victims, right? I mean, he took out a full-page ad during the Central Park 5 thing, to put those people, to get the death penalty reinstated for those folks. I mean, Donald Trump has no problem spending money in order to damage people because he knows he can ride a promotional wave for it. And it's and the basic bottom line is, what's the incentive? What's encouraging you to do this? You're being rewarded for this. Well, we need to isolate that, identify it, and take that incentive away. And that's ultimately what the Trump thing is about. We're saying that, Macy's knows they get real rewards out of this, and ultimately it's not only inconsistent with Macy's brand, and it's bad for their own business, but it's not the kind of thing that a responsible corporate actor should be trying to take advantage of and encouraging through these relationships, which is effectively what they do.
And you're listening to We Act Radio. This is Maria Roach, and I'm here with Angelo Carusone. He is the architect of Dump Trump and the Stop Rush campaigns. He is VP at Media Matters. Angelo, what would you say to those who feel disenfranchised, those who feel like they've been bullied, someone who in their community feels like they don't have a voice? What would be the lessons that they can learn from you, someone who takes these bullies on head on with quite a bit of success?
I think that there's two ingredients. It's that teamwork works and persistence pays off. It's that simple. And it sounds like I'm being blithe about it, but I'm not. It's true that, you need to find and you need to organize people, because there are definitely people that agree with you, especially if there's a bully. No one likes a bully. Everyone's been on the bus growing up and had to deal with the bully. Either they had to deal with the bully directly, or they had to sit there putting their head down and hoping the bully didn't pick on them. And I spent way too long, in that role. When I finally stood up to bullies growing up, I learned that you can really adjust their cost calculus. You don't have to beat them. You just have to make it not worth their while anymore. And it's a similar thing here. You have to find and identify the people that agree with you and that support this effort, and they're definitely there. And you just have to be willing to put in the persistence, because ultimately you're dealing with, Donald Trump's a billionaire, so he's got a pretty big cushion, and so you have to be willing to dig in, because if they know you're going to dig in and they know you're going to be persistent about it, it changes the cost calculus. They can't just wave it off and know that you're going to move on to something else in a week. If you're not going to go away and you're only going to get bigger and gain steam every day and every week, well, then that's a very different equation.
And I'm living proof that that calculus is true, that persistence and teamwork does work. A year ago, I created a petition thinking I would get a couple of hundred signatures, and 500,000 people signed saying that the FBI needed to step in and investigate the shooting death of Trayvon Martin. So, Angelo, what's next? What are you looking at? What are the strategies that you have for some of your upcoming campaign work that you'd like to share?
Donald Trump is definitely the focus right now. My sense is that the tide has already turned on Trump. Sometimes it's just a matter of creating safe space. I notice now there's a lot more people who ordinarily never engage in these kinds of battles speaking up about Donald Trump. Celebrities, influencers, major media figures, corporate actors, all of a sudden they have a bone to pick with Donald Trump. And I think that's because in part some of the space has been cleared. Now they're not the first one out there. And so I certainly want to encourage and keep that space available for, the larger corporate community to push back on the kinds of conduct that Trump has been engaged in. And I think there's going to be more organizing when it comes to the Donald Trump stuff. I would love to run at some point a Dump Trump blimp in one of the major Macy's cities, because apparently Macy's is interested in hot air. And so I think that if we're going to have to do that, we're going to have to get some hot air of our own. But other than that, the Trump is the major focus right now, because that persistence element is key. And I wouldn't want Trump to think that or that this is sort of flared down. I haven't seen any indication that Macy's purchased for the next season yet. That was always my sense, that eventually they'd recalibrate and figure things out. At the very least, the effort has been successful because they had significant plans to expand and develop the Trump brand, and that certainly hasn't happened in the last few months, and they were planning on doing that. So to a large part, I think we've already won, and now it's just a matter of getting that final cutoff. And until then, that's my laser focus.
Well, you heard it here. Help Angelo get his hot air. I see a blimp on the horizon. Angelo, thank you so much for the great organizing work that you're doing, and thanks for joining me here today.
Thank you very much.
Thanks again for listening to State of Play. I'm your host, Maria Roach. We are looking at some of the issues that matter to you most and bringing in the great organizers to inspire you on how they are able to go up against the bullies and to give pressure to the legislators who are not looking out for your best interests, and also to highlight some of the great work that's happening, that they are really good, hardworking people who care about social change and care about the community. So please listen to me every Wednesday here at We Act Radio, State of Play News with Maria Roach, every Wednesday at 11 a.m. on weactradio.com. Thanks again, and I look forward to joining you next week. Send me a tweet, State of Play News.
One, two, three, four.
You're listening to We Act Radio, WPWC 1480 AM. Visit us online at weactradio.com.
You're listening to WIN, Workers Independent News, a production of Diversified Media Enterprises. I'm Doug Cunningham. Warehouse Workers United's Elizabeth Brennan says that Walmart refused to accept petitions calling for the reinstatement of worker activist Javier Rodriguez. Rodriguez was fired from a Walmart warehouse in California's Inland Empire last Thursday.
They invented a reason to demote him last Friday, and then on Thursday, just a few days ago, they called him into the office, said they had conducted an investigation of which he wasn't part of, and told him that he was fired.